The American President Teddy Roosevelt once described diplomacy as the art of dealing country to country as speak softly but carry a big stick. The idea being that behind all your diplomatic words and niceties was the threat that if you don't do what we want, we can clobber you. Well, the problem was that Britain in the 1930s was speaking softly and didn't have a big stick. Or to put it in other words, Britain's defences were woefully ill-prepared. I've nicked the phrase on there, naked into the conference chamber, used many years later by a Labour politician about nuclear weapons. Okay, don't let me go into the conference chamber without something to threaten them with. Well, the problem was in 1938, Britain wasn't much of a threat to anyone. After the First World War, there had been huge spending cuts and the armed forces had taken a lot of the brunt of that. And then there was a thing called the 10-year rule. Oh, very nice. This said, there won't be another war for 10 years, so basically you didn't have to build your defences up. Now that was abandoned in the early 30s, sensibly after the Manchuria crisis, but not much was done about it. In 1934 there was a thing called the Defence Requirements Committee, but not much was done about that, to be frank with you, and mainly the main build-up of forces was to build bombers, and the reason for this was Britain was terrified of the bomber. The phrase used by Baldwin was the bomber will always get through. And the basic feel was after people saw what happened in Guernica in Spain in 1937, where the Germans bombed the town of Guernica, the city of Guernica, and you could see the bodies of women and children laid out in the street, the destroyed town. And the fear was, well, what would that do to London? Yeah, what would that do to the big cities of Britain? Chamberlain flies for the first time in 1938, flies over the city and looks at the suburbs and thinks, what could the Germans do here? Estimates of deaths caused by bombers were as high as 600,000. It was way over the top. It's about 10 times more than there actually were in the Second World War in Britain. That fear, though, I think does a great deal to determine defence policy, build bombers, not develop the army, which means Britain can't easily interfere in France, but also to delay, to try and stop Britain going to war. It actually, in one way, worked. Rearmament begins big time in 1938, but before 1938, the technology would not have been there that actually did make it difficult to bomb Britain in the Second World War. Radar, a kind of defensive system of signals, and the Spitfire and Hurricane fighter planes that would stop the Germans being able to attack Britain by day. They could only bomb by night, and that did a great deal to lessen the effect of German bombing. So, yeah, Britain was weak in its defences in 1938, and that was a huge determinant in the fact that Britain, Chamberlain felt, they really couldn't go to war.